Well, hello there to all the good people of Ohio and beyond. This is Aaron Knapp, and you're tuned into Unplugged, broadcasting without permission. This is a place where the truth gets louder and we dig deeper, and where we always remember be lawful, not awful. If you want the full stories, the documents, the videos, and everything they don't want you to see, head on over to AaronKnappUnplugged.com, my new home for every investigation, every episode, and every update. And while you're here, be sure to like the video, follow the page, and hit subscribe, and share this with someone who needs the truth. We're building something real here. We're building something fearless, and we're doing it together. Welcome to Unplugged. Let's kick this thing off.
Plug with Knapp. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Knapp. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask.
Good evening there, Lorain City, Lorain County, and beyond. Aaron Knapp here. It's been a glorious day today for me, and I just wanted to close it out with a quick little podcast to kind of talk about today's events as they went down. More of a news informative type podcast tonight as we go along with our new format of trying to not just do, well, what we usually do, which is political news, but also cover whatever we can that comes along our way. So tonight we're going to talk about power, process, precision, and what the record shows when you refuse to look away. And, I'd like to welcome you guys all back here to another episode of Unplugged with Aaron Knapp. And this episode is going to be its usual length, I suppose. But the subject demands it, and the short form explanations are always how power survives scrutiny. So what you're about to hear is not a highlight reel as usual. It's going to be it's not going to be a recap or some sort of sustained examination of how authority operates in the city. When you slow things down to what you actually see, like, or slow things down to enough to actually see it, right? So I want to begin this episode where it has to begin, which is the foundation of the project itself. Because without the foundation, everything else that follows becomes easier for people to dismiss, distort, or ignore. So today marks a significant milestone for this work that I'm doing. And for me personally, Knapp Unplugged Media LLC is now officially formed in the state of Ohio. We are operating as an Unplugged with Knapp, doing business as, and the company has been issued its federal EIN. That matters in real tangible ways, folks, because this work is no longer housed inside something informal or undefined, right? It exists within a legal format, a structure that it was chosen deliberately by me and thoughtfully, and with full awareness of what this work actually is starting to involve. I may not have started it out thinking it was going to turn into this. Sure, maybe this started out as advocacy against, one chief and one person and one thing. But the deeper we go, the more strings we pull, the more this becomes about not just a chief or just some social worker, the more it becomes about a city, a county, maybe even a state. But you got to start looking at these things with the full awareness of that. And the decision that I did to do this was not driven by ego, right? It was driven by, not even driven by branding, which, obviously I put up a website, I put up my logo, but it was driven by experience. Because when you investigate power, folks, when you request public records like I do, when you document misconduct, when you publish facts that the institutions, the commissioners, the city council people, the people that work within these, enshrined with these institutions, getting $90,000 a year for doing squat, while professionals, licensed professionals, social workers are out there with a 4 to 6 year education, and they're working for a pittance of what these people in the government are making. Yet they say they can't live, comparable wage. But you expect social workers to go out and work for 60 grand a year or 50 grand a year. Okay, I got it. But when you document this kind of stuff, when you publish these facts, institutions would rather stay buried. The absence of structure becomes a vulnerability, right? And that vulnerability does not remain theoretical. And it gets exploited quickly. It gets exploited quietly. And it gets exploited most aggressively when the questions stop being comfortable, which is almost always with this government. Forming an LLC creates a clear legal container for journalism. It separates personal life from professional reporting. It protects records, contracts, and intellectual property. More importantly, it establishes continuity and it signals permanence. It ensures that the work that I'm doing can not just be brushed aside as a hobby, a side project, or a personal grievance when scrutiny starts to land where it's not wanted. So, in the grand scheme, this is what being a bona fide actual journalistic company looks like, right? It looks like filings. It looks like compliance. Boring stuff, right? It looks like choosing durability over convenience. So no one gets to pretend that this work is informal when accountability becomes uncomfortable. Because, like, we know that's going to happen. At some point, people are going to be like, oh, this guy's becoming a little bit of a pain in the ass. So what we should do is get rid of him. So how do we do that? Well, maybe we go take his name and we tell him he can't operate under that name anymore. Maybe we go try to trademark something of his. So I protect myself there. Then I look at the other things that they say. You got people like Joel and even Mayor Bradley that will question whether I can even sit at the journalist section, which usually I'm sitting in the handicap chair, which I'm handicapped too. So like I could go either way, but yeah, I'm usually there as a journalist, and yeah, I do have to get up and stretch and do stuff every once in a while, but I sit up there. Those are the most comfortable chairs in the house, and they only have 2 seats, and they've got names on them. It's not for journalists; it's for the 2 people, as we kind of pointed out, and I'll talk about it a little bit later in the last City Hall meeting. But this for me is choosing durability over convenience, right? Alongside forming this LLC, I also joined the Cleveland Press Club. And that decision did not come on a credential chasing or gatekeeping. It came through professional respect. A fellow journalist, Mark Puente, who I met at the police department right before he did the story on the parking tickets, and then later he did the other story that really cracked. He suggested I attend. He sent me a message and said, "Hey, I think you'd really like this." It was a First Amendment meeting with a bunch of other journalists from the area, and I showed up and I listened. And, I saw the value in the supporting the journalism community that understands something essential, that local reporting is often the most exposed and the least protected precisely because it operates closest to the power, right? They can attack us. They can destroy us. Journalism does not require membership in a press club, okay? Just to be clear about that. It never has. It doesn't require permission. You don't need someone's permission to be a journalist. But professional community does matter because it reinforces the standards, the ethics, and the shared understanding that this work is not supposed to be comfortable, and it's not supposed to be convenient for those being scrutinized. I would also point out it's something I heard about in that meeting where I went to. It was more of an informal, formal get together. And what they talked about was First Amendment rights. They talked about records requesting, but the one proponent was a guy that was the city councilman or something from Cleveland, and he brought up some drastic points like how do we register journalists, how do we make journalists this, that, the other. I heard a lot of First Amendment arguments just bursting out of the seams. Most of the journalists present were kind of upset, like about that theory, but one of the points he brought up was how do we know who's legitimate? How do we know what's true, what's not? Even Mayor Bradley himself said it the other day. He said, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna have so and so." He's talking about the ICE stuff. He said, "I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about supporting ICE in that meeting." And he's right. I was there. I videoed the whole thing. Like Mayor Bradley wasn't the one that said it was. I think the person that was sitting where. Like next to Victoria sit in that meeting. I'm not real sure, but it wasn't Bradley who said he supported ICE, but Bradley said something important. You just can't believe everything you read on the internet, right? And he's right. So I try to be truthful. with everything I do, with everything I write. I try to, do the right thing when it comes to my publications. I put all the legal notices out. I put all the journalistic integrity notices out. Yes, I do use AI for the photographs. Obviously, like I don't draw that stuff, but I did that because when I filed a picture once of McCann that the Chronicle once used, and I was talking bad about the Chronicle's reporting on this, and that gave me right to use that photo. And there were other things, slap laws, and the fact that I at the time was not considered a business entity. Um, I got a cease and desist from their lawyer at the Chronicle. So I just stopped using pictures altogether. Because what happens if I use a picture that they think they used, or it looks like something they used, and so it's just easier to throw a digital photo up that AI generated. And I usually make it cartoon so that it knows that it's cartoon and it's not me trying to depict somebody doing something they didn't do. I will say in that last story I did, which we'll talk about later, I did AI Terry Soto because I wanted the picture of her that wasn't in the paper, and they don't have a whole lot of photos out there ever. But so I also now carry a Lorain Politics branded press pass, which I bought, and had printed up before I got the LLC stuff. But it has all of the proper logos on it. It has all the proper, criteria to associate with my company. And I want to be very clear why this exists, because it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of this work. It's not about demanding access, right? It's not about getting special treatment. It's not even about status. It exists only for clarity. That's it. Not my daughter, not for clarity's sake, just for clarity. For years, local government actors have been repeatedly, have tried to pretend that, I wouldn't say for years, I'd say for a couple years, but, that I'm not press. Now, I get it. I didn't start as press. I was a social worker. I still am a social worker, but social workers are a lot of things. I have a bachelor's degree. I have in social work. I have a minor in drug and alcohol counseling from the Ohio State University, OH. And even after our poor showing recently, it's still my favorite. So, but that doesn't come with lack of knowledge on research, a lack of integrity. And in fact, unlike a journalist, I'm still bound to tell the truth no matter what. So the things that I print, I don't print lightly. I always try to verify every piece of fact. And if I do something that I deem to be a lie or something wrong, I will come right out and admit it, because I don't want to lose my credibility. I'm not making money off this. Although if you did want to make money off this, there's this little thing right up there, right there. You click on that and it'll take you to a little link. You can donate to support local journalism. But basically that's why I do this. Like, I want to get the information out there. But that press pass is kind of like the bar of entry, because lately Joel Arredondo and other actors, like even Jack Bradley, have tried to question my entry. Where's your, and they say this, you see it all the time with these First Amendment auditors, right? They're like, oh, where's your press pass? Where's your credentials? Well, who issues those? There's nobody. There's two associations. One's European, one's American. You just pay. It's just a membership. There's no real, it's not like me as a social worker where I have to go take a test and be state accredited. So again, I write with my credentials. And so if I'm writing with my credentials at times, you can guarantee I'm writing with the best of my knowledge that this is truthful. I'm not going to lie. But hey, this didn't happen occasionally, but it happened repeatedly. They've tried to pretend that my questions don't count, right? That my presence is somehow illegitimate, that my work exists in a gray space that can be ignored without any consequence. The tactic's not even subtle. It's not accidental. It's a way of avoiding accountability without ever having to say no on the record. I would even point out that while I gave and will give Terry Soto tons of credit in this article, I was sitting in the press area, live streaming the whole thing for the city to watch if they wanted. I'm at every Monday meeting that they have. I live stream the meetings. I waited till after to interview her and get the information. But as I was sitting there, she even said, "Oh, I see our two local news outlets aren't here tonight. I hope that they'll come ask for a press release on this." I was like, what am I? Shop fucking liver? Like, I had to fucking hold the press pass up, and I was like, you know, and I do, like, I don't know. I like Terry. Like, we get our haircuts the same place. Like, you know, like, I bumped into her in public. She's always nice to me. I never had a problem with Terry. I just thought it was funny. I mean, it's not her fault. It's a societal thought that the only two news agencies in this town can be the Chronicle or the Morning Journal. And the Chronicle doesn't print every day. The Morning Journal, whatever. I mean, whatever. I like Daryl Tucker, but obviously I have some qualms about Miss Chapin. But that's for another day. Now, so when you look at these people, they don't look at me, they don't look at the Jones brothers, they don't look at anybody else that's trying to be out there reporting as legitimate news media. Now, I may not be traditional news media, but I'm providing on the spot assessments, I'm giving out knowledge, and I have good knowledge. And so they try to pretend I'm not press, not occasionally, but they've done it repeatedly. They even asked me, who are you today? Aaron Knapp or press? Both. They try to pretend that I, you know, my questions aren't going to count, that my presence somehow doesn't belong there, that, you know, my work exists in this gray space where it can just be ignored. But that's not the case anymore. You know, I see the statistics on my articles. I see how far they get out. That tactic's not subtle and it's not accidental. It's a way of avoiding accountability without ever having to say no on the record. And then when the officials don't want to answer questions, the easiest move they've had is to not to rebut any of your facts, is to delegitimize the person asking them. That is how the conversation gets redirected away from the documents, right? Statutes and decisions, and it's towards your tone or your personality or your credentials or your intent. It's an odd tactic, it's an old tactic, and it thrives at the local level where power is informal, and scrutiny is often, you know, assumed to be weak. My press pass that I made for my company, for me, and if I end up actually having other people go out, you know, I might have some made up for people that I use regularly to start assisting in this venture. But the press pass exists to shut down that whole like system structurally. When they say, where's your press pass? Well, here it is. Well, that's just something you made. Well, so is any other press pass. If you ask for a press pass from the Chronicle, Channel 19 News, or any of that, it's just their employee badge. Well, this is my employee badge. I have an LLC. That's my badge. And it exists because there's no ambiguity about like why I'm in the room, what capacity I'm operating in, or what standards govern the work. It exists and no one can, you know, credibly pretend that they're dealing with a random commenter or a private citizen acting out of like some personal interest. When the reporting is ethical, the document driven, and conducted openly, public officials do not get to decide who counts as press based on whether coverage is flattering. The press pass, the LLC, the EIN, all exist to make that reality visible and unavoidable. You know, they remove the manufacturing ambiguity. That's it, folks. Like, they make it one of the most effective tools for obstructing accountability without ever appearing to do so, right? Journalism doesn't require a press pass. It never has. You don't need one. You could go in there. I mean, that same night, Nikki, my girl, was in there. She came down there because she saw me videoing, and she talks about a lot of stuff, and she broadcasts a lot of stuff. And hey, by the way, I'm gonna give out a little shout out to Nikki. You've probably seen on my page, Nikki and Mill. Like, she's passing around a petition for people online that's about, you know, child custody issues, and it's something we should all be paying attention to. So if you look on my page, you'll see Nikki's post about child custody. Maybe you check it out. Maybe you go sign her petition. Or at least give it consideration. But, you know, she posts stuff, she videos, you know, everybody is out there providing information. Even Facebook provides information. There are plenty of websites out there on Facebook that are providing good information. You know, Katie Byer, she was over with Amber, and, you know, that was good information. Even had Amber on there too, and they were like, and they were on there with, but, you know, I mean, it was really cool for them, you know. But it doesn't require that press pass. The infrastructure doesn't, create some sort of legitimacy. It doesn't make it perfect. All it does is prevents officials from pretending legitimacy doesn't exist, right? And honestly, I in the army we sing this song about a bird. A yellow bird with a yellow bill was sitting on my windowsill. I lured him in with a piece of bread, and then I smashed his head. Sound off 1, 2. Well, a little birdie told me that if I didn't LLC up, I might get my head smashed. And so, as usual, I salute you, my brother in arms, for that heads up. I appreciate it. Thank you. It cost me $99 and another I paid another like 60 for the Cleveland Press Club. I put it on credit. But I got it. So it legitimizes it, it covers it, it protects all of this, and it also protects the website because I'm paying for the StreamYard, I'm paying for the website, I'm doing all of these things to try and provide a better atmosphere in Lorain for people to understand what's going on. And that's why honestly, you should donate. I'm just kidding, but I'm not. But really, I'm not. Seriously though. Anyway, so we're gonna do a quick ad break for my non-sponsors ads, and I'll be right back. And our next section, we're going to talk about what happened at City Hall's meeting on Monday, a little bit about the marijuana tax that we're going to be accepting, which is going to be great news. Like $18,000 is going to be coming into our coffers, as well as something Jeff Baer did, which was fucking amazing. All right, like I wrote a story about him once, but look, I'm in the Army. He was in the Marines. It's what we do. Like he eats crayons. I eat MREs with green eggs and ham. I mean, like, look, I wrote a story about him during the whole thing, but it doesn't mean he's not going to be a great councilman. He worked under the county level under the recorder's office, and he has some attention to detail. And he did something in this next segment that you guys are going to really appreciate. It's something I haven't seen in council for a while. It kind of gives me hope. Like that last meeting, as much as some people dislike me for it, the actions of some of these new council people gave me hope. So really quick, we're going to do this ad break, and I promise I'll be right back. So just stick around for a quick second, and I will return. But I got to see first. So here at Unplugged with Aaron Knapp, we like to thank our sponsors. We have a few unofficial sponsors tonight, and they are definitely not paid sponsorships. I want to throw out there a big thank you to Joseph Jones and Eric Jones of the Lorain Daily and the Vermilion Daily. They have a local news page. You should check them out. They do plenty of great work broadcasting all the news that is the news that you want to have in Lorain and Lorain County. So check them out. Also, please, if you need any legal services, feel free to reach out to Robert Gargas. You can find him listed online. He's a fine attorney and comes highly recommended by yours truly. And last but not least, I want to mention DNC Radio. Please make sure you check out one of the up-and-coming internet hip-hop stations and all of their shows. They put on a lot of shows. You have the Never Outdone show. You also have the Eric Bowen show, Speak Up, Speak Out. So please make sure you guys check them out as well if you're looking for your latest and up-to-date hip-hop artistry. All right, guys, welcome back here. Before I get started on the top of the next section, I just want to say a quick hi to, gosh, I got to read this stuff. It's small. Braxton Cole, Wyatt Jones, Darren Petty, I see you guys in the comments there. It's hard for me to read those because they're super small, but I see you guys in the comments. I thank you for saying hi and reaching out. All right, we're going to get our next section here now. We're back here at Unplugged with Aaron Knapp. We're here back with the foundation that matters when we walk into City Hall because it determines whether questions are treated as legitimate or disposable, right? That brings us to last Monday night's City Council meeting, which was kind of interesting. Last Monday's meeting at Lorain City Council looked routine, and if you were not paying attention, a treasurer's report. Acceptance of state distributed revenue. Standard legislative housekeeping, right? The kind meeting most people skip because there's nothing dramatic that seems to be happening. We didn't have all our members there. Joel was still missing in action. I want to kind of say something about that real quick. Joel Arredondo has been missing in action for quite a few days now, quite a few meetings now. Start to wonder if there's actually a time limit on how many meetings he can miss as president before we need to replace him. On top of that, like, what's wrong with him that we don't know? Like, I know people have the right to privacy, but he's also government. If he can't appear and do his duties, we need to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's no different than when Mr. Thornsbury took all those days off for one thing, but it turned out to be apparently something else. But hey, the people that lead us don't feel like they're obligated to tell us anything. They on the other hand love giving our stuff out to everybody. But hey, whatever. But hey, we don't go to those meetings, we don't pay attention. But power rarely announces itself loudly, right? It lives in process. It lives in the paperwork. It lives in whether someone notices a mistake before it hardens into official action. And this is why I want to point out why it's important for you guys to all go there too. But Treasurer Terry Soto addressed council. She's regarding ongoing administrative work inside her, the income tax department. And her remarks about online filing and modernization were framed correctly as long-term planning that began under prior leadership. I think it was Mayor Rittenhauer or something like that. And how it began under prior leadership. It continued across administrations. It wasn't political theater, right? It was professional continuity. Terry got up there and she talked about a municipal finance and how it's very unforgiving, right? Accuracy, compliance matter more than applause. Her tone reflected that reality. She's not up there going to be a superstar. No one's like, oh, great money, yawn. Oh, taxes, yawn, right? But but before before they approved all that, council just moved right on to accept just over $18,000 in marijuana tax revenue allocated to the city. This is a new revenue stream, folks, governed by the state law and deposited into the general fund on a reoccurring basis for now. Now, this is not discretionary money. Council must accept it correctly and under the correct statutory authority. And this is where the meeting kind of quietly became important. Right? Like, so they're doing their little dance that they have to do where they, pass things, 3 reading rule of that. And I believe they were doing a waiver of the 3 reading rule as they usually do to accept this money. And in this case, it would be appropriate to do a waiver of the 3 reading rule. But our councilman, I think he's in the 7th ward. Our new councilman from the 7th ward. That's right. It's Jeff Baer, folks. Mr. Marine himself, former Marine. Well, they say no Marine's a former Marine, and every Marine's a rifleman. And they always love crayons. And I bet you if you ask Jeff, his favorite color is green because that's the color he was looking at when he was talking about doing this newly seated thing. He's sitting there and he identified that our law department, the fabulous law department with 4 doctorates, four doctorates. That's right, folks. They have 4 doctorates, not 3, not 2, but 1, but 4 doctorates, and are the smartest law department, and according to Mr. Riley's opinion, that has ever existed in the city of Lorain. I might be exaggerating the last part a little bit, but hey, during that discussion, Jeff, he's like casually, dude, just like a big dick in a locker room, right? He rolls out and he's like, I'm not sure exactly how he said it. I think it's point of order, basically he asked to amend the order. And, while other people have rolled into council and kind of had to do a lot of questions, Jeff's been, as I expect most people who have been prior service, Marine, whatever, he's been a little reserved about most of what he said and done. I've noticed, but this was a moment, right? I've gone to all these council meetings. I've sat in absolute object terror as our local council people have just shit all over the due process of everything. Paid no attention to a goddamn thing that rolled across their desk. Didn't read a single motion. Didn't read a single nothing, right? Or if they did, they just didn't have the grasp or the capability to understand it. I know we're in the Army. We make fun of the Marines and we say they're this, that, and the other. But obviously, Jeff's working in the recorder's office. He's an intelligent man. And he deals with numbers, or at least he deals with recording documents that have to be accurate all the time. So he's reading this beforehand. Oh, shit. Like, he read the agenda beforehand. Unlike my councilman, who can't answer a fucking email, I get it. I mean, we had our issues because I ran against him, but you're still my councilman. You know, I noticed you started to say, hi, Mr. Knapp, hi, Mr. Knapp. Now you just walk by me, right? Yeah, because you did some dumb shit on election day. But that, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Jeff is sitting there and he calls out that there's a statutory citation that's been inverted on accepting the funds. I'm not going to give you the exact number because I don't know it offhand. I'm sorry. But Jeff goes, point of order, I'd accept it, but we need to amend this. And I'm not going to quote it, but just imagine, right? So there's no cutting this and anything else. I'm making believe right now that this was the number. And I'm going to say it's under statutory rule, RC 8303.03. Well, they had it as like 8303.30 or some stuff like that. Or maybe, some numbers were inverted. The law department made a mistake when they identified the law that they gave to council to use, right? The law department made a mistake, right? Jeff Bear caught it. Jeff Bear's not a lawyer. Jeff Bear's a Marine. Hoorah, Marine! Jeez, my granddaddy was a horse Marine. Everything he ate was Marine Corps green. He ate steaks 8 inches thick. Picked his teeth with a got on a stick. Anyway, dude, it's not ideological. It was a technical legal error, right? A technical legal error matters, right? And law numbers are not cosmetic. Authority does not exist because everyone agrees it should. It exists because the statute says it does exactly as written. Parrott raised the issue calmly and on the record, like a boss, right? Like just dropped it, bam, right in the middle of council. He didn't talk about God for an hour. He didn't talk about ICE for 6 hours. He didn't amble on about every other godforsaken thing in town. He didn't write emails about how to get rid of some social worker who was a pain in their ass. He didn't accuse anyone. He didn't talk to the law department. He just dropped that bomb right there. Boom. Got to fix it. He stated a fact. The citation was wrong as written and needed to be corrected before council proceeded. That's what real fucking oversight looks like, guys. Someone that knows the statute. Someone that knows and notices the discrepancy. Someone that speaks up before the error becomes permanent. Now, context matters here. The same law department, that same law department, has recently complained to local reporters, because I read the story, about numerical errors made by others, including an alleged leak to the Chronicle involving a certain attorney, Robert Gargas, who I know. Precision mattered then. Accuracy mattered enough to shape a narrative outside formal channels, right? It mattered enough for someone, because you want me to believe that Dave O'Brien has time to run around and look up municipal cases and county cases? Not even I do that, right? So obviously the law department allegedly sent this to them. One of them did. And they bitched and moaned that supposedly somebody made a mistake. And then they corrected the mistake and moved on, right? No big deal. It was in response to something minor. And in all honesty, again, I just want to point this out, folks. If you are conflicted in a case, so imagine if you're in Garen Petty's case for what happened with City Hall, which he only pled out to because, honestly, it was for his wife. Now, I'm also be honest. Everything played out the way it needed to for this case to move on. And in the grand scheme of things, what just blows my mind is that a law department tried to be the counsel in that, right? Initially, it was jackass Radiff trying to subpoena me illegally through the mail as a deuce techum, like a moron, for some video I didn't have. And then later it was Bob Barker, whatever his name was, over there at Gimkley and my guy Pecora's law firm, and he comes over and he's operating in things. And I know Garen's going to correct me later on the guy's name. I know I didn't get it right, whatever. So if you had to recuse yourself then how are you even representing the city now in this case? Which I find funny that suddenly that's like being brought up in the newspaper. The newspaper here, Chronicle, seems to get these stories fed to them a lot. Not just that one, other ones about certain social workers and candidates, and they spin it the way they want to spin it every time. They never praise a Robert Gargis. They never praise a Garen Petty. They never praise an Aaron Knapp. They begrudgingly post their letters to the editor. But the Chronicle clearly always has an agenda. Their stories are seen as an agenda. And proof is in the pudding. They moved their building out of Lorain. They publish off-site, and they're a dying breed. They're not able to put out paper every day. And then you got reporters over at other news article places like Heather Chapin who literally are telling lies about other local people like me. But hey, whatever. So if precision mattered then accuracy mattered enough to shape a narrative outside formal channels for the city to go somewhere and apparently, allegedly speak to a news reporter, well, then you guys can't even figure your own job out. And I might add that I would still argue you did that in the gun law case. And I'm going to say this out loud just so, because I'm a little ego driven. Bowles, their youngest attorney, he keeps putting my brother's name first in the motion. Now, any first-year law student knows that if you go and look at a caption moment, you write the person's name, so Aaron Knapp, LSW, BSSW, et al. That's how it would look versus the douchebags, the city of Lorain. And so every time he writes Bobby Littlejohn and removes the guy with the credentials and then writes versus the city of Lorain, he's being a dick, right? It is a legal procedure, civil procedure. It's not, it's first year law shit, but let's just quote it. He's being a dick. Like, that's all it is. I'm going to be a dick. I can't say your name, so I'm going to write someone else's name. That's just being a dick. And it's actually misleading the court every single time he does it. So this is the same law department that does all of this is now sending what you can't win a case on its merits. So you've got to try to go to a reporter and win it there. And honestly, like, no one understood that fucking story. It was like, oh, mama got the brain pain. This is sad, guys. But here we are, yet again, watching the law department invert a statutory citation at official counsel actions. There's no evidence that this mistake was intentional, right? Clerical errors happen. People make mistakes, but when precision is demanded outward, but relaxed inward, credibility erodes. What matters is that the correction did not come from the law department. It came from the council floor. One of our youngest, newest members of council, Councilman Bear, served his country as a Marine and now caught some dumb shit before it ruined our ability to request 18 grand in money. If we'd inverted those numbers, we might not have accepted that money. And we need that damn money in our general fund. Anybody that thinks otherwise is kidding themselves, right? Like, we need that money. But he did it because while City Hall was engaged in a quiet procedural correction on the public record, the rest of Lorain County was experiencing an entirely different exercise of governmental authority unfolding in real time. Earlier that same day, not earlier that same day. It was actually so that was on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, today, residents across Lorain, Sheffield Township, Elyria, and neighboring communities began witnessing something that immediately stood out as kind of abnormal, right? This was not a single cruiser responding to a call. This was not a routine patrol activity. What you observed today was a sustained, fast-moving, multi-agency police response force unfolding across surface streets, arterial corridors, and residential neighborhoods. I myself saw the beginning of it driving my daughter home from school as they were all driving out of Southside to go joining the chase. I saw a couple Lorain vehicles. I had to pull over for one to get past me at the school because the parents at Southview Middle line up in the street like morons and they block traffic. And unfortunately, that's why you don't block traffic, because that officer needed to get out, right? Again, I know everybody thinks I'm like, I hate cops. I don't. I'm just pro not doing dumb shit. But the cops sitting, so imagine the cops sitting behind all this traffic lined up, and then everybody on this side's going. He hasn't hit his lights yet, but I see everyone else has hit their lights, and I know he needs to go. So before I get to that stack right in front of Southview Middle where there's an opening, I just stopped, kind of veered over to the right, and blocked traffic coming behind me so that he could zoom out and go around. He kicked his lights on and went code by me and flew out there. And what eyewitnesses and myself described was 10 or more marked police vehicles traveling at extreme speeds with lights and sirens activated, right? Moving in coordinated fashion rather than independently. Units were seen converging from different directions. Obviously, they were radioed, jurisdictional guiding to those points. Different jurisdictions indicating a coordinated response rather than an isolated incident. Reports placed police vehicles moving through Avon Lake, or through through Lake Avenue, Elyria Avenue, Pearl Road, surrounding routes, including areas that pass directly through school zones. Dense commercial corridors, right, guys? And residents described cruisers traveling well in excess of posted limits, continuing for several minutes rather than seconds. I'm not judging this, okay? I'm just reporting this. This was not a momentary flash of emergency response. This was a sustained movement across municipalities, visible to dozens of people in different locations at the time, all at the same time. That alone signaled this was a high-risk incident with immediate public safety implications, right? Now, as it was unfolding, information began circulating among the public in real time. Scanner traffic and dispatch monitoring applications. People over at the other websites, some of the monitoring sites had put out traffic stuff about it. It wasn't really being put out in a coordinated method. And so at the time I was covering it, I wrote what I believe to be one of the first big stories about it. I advised the public of what was going on and advised them to get off the streets. I then contacted the editor over at Lorain Daily, Eric, and he was, tied up and on the road. And so he just gave me permission to post it on their site. So I posted on their site to get it out there to everybody. And, they recirculated it. So we got it out to the public. We wanted you guys to know firsthand, real time, both myself and the Lorain Daily wanted to get it out there as quickly as possible so we knew people could get off the streets. Because the reports were this person was smacking into cars, causing collateral damage. And it turns out later that, he had taken hostages. Social media posts and direct messages reflected all the same people, that people were actively watching the same event from different vantage points. You could see it unfold real time almost on Facebook. And it was just weird that I drove in with it. Now, some residents reported seeing a black passenger vehicle being pursued. Other reported police units spreading out, suggesting containment efforts rather than a single straight line of pursuit. At least one account referenced collision near Midway Mall area involving the suspect vehicle. At that point, no official statement has been released, right? There was no confirmation of any underlying offense, no confirmation of suspects, and no confirmation of injuries. But the scale of the response itself was informative. Law enforcement does not deploy that many units across multiple jurisdictions at that speed, through populated areas without a perceived immediate threat. The response told its own story before any of the press releases existed. Later that evening, tonight, law enforcement confirmed that what the response had already indicated and strongly, and that I'd originally reported, was the incident originated as an aggravated robbery involving a Brinks armored truck. I was the first one. I put that out. I had seen it on one of the scanner pages, or someone had reposted it. They reposted it, right? I didn't grab it, but I took it, put it in my story. Then the story started to float out. According to police, officers initially responded to the robbery and identified the suspect's vehicle. When officers attempted to stop that vehicle in Lorain, the driver fled. He initiated a high-speed pursuit that crossed multiple jurisdictions, and the pursuit continued through Lorain County and into Cuyahoga County, with speeds reported to have exceeded 100 miles per hour at times. North Olmsted police ultimately deployed spike strips, successfully disabling the vehicle, and even then, the incident didn't end. I guess the suspect exited the vehicle. He fled on foot into a nearby apartment complex, and what escalated the situation further and dramatically raised the stakes. According to confirmed statements by law enforcement, the suspect entered an apartment with a mother and her 4 children were present and attempted to take them hostage. Now we got no longer simply a fleeing suspect. It becomes an active hostage situation with kids, innocent civilians, including children, who had no connection to the original offense. No ability to remove themselves from the danger, right? Dude just showed the fuck up. An officer confronted what police described as a deadly threat, and in that counter, the officer fatally shot the suspect. A firearm was recovered inside the apartment, believed to belong to the suspect. Investigators also reported finding a large amount of cash inside the suspect's vehicle, consistent with the earlier robbery. No officers were physically injured, and the mother and the children were not physically harmed. I know you're probably not hear this from me, but this is one of those things I think was justified. This guy knew. My brother and I talked about it earlier today. Like, this guy knew. He was like, you're either going to pull this off or you're going to die trying. You get a brain struck. In this day and age, like, that takes a lot of coordination anyway. I'm surprised he even was able to do it. But he got some money. He got his gun. He went on the run. He caused a lot of danger to a lot of civilians. And then he fled on foot, took people hostage, and he lost his life. He later died at the hospital, but the investigation into the shooting has formally been turned over to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal, BCI, Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And that's consistent with standard protocol for officer-involved shootings. The officer who fired the fatal shot was placed on paid administrative leave pending the outcome of that investigation. The Elyria Police Chief, James Welsh, publicly praised the officer, stating that the actions taken prevented further harm and resolved what had already become a rapidly evolving and extremely dangerous situation. And I have to agree. There's nobody in their right mind that would think this was okay. This is the kind of work that police are meant to be doing, right? All this unfolded within hours of a city, of high school getting let out, with an hour of the high school getting let out and the kids being out. People were traveling home. There was some dangerous stuff, right? And then the previous day we had a council meeting where statutory precision mattered in a very different way, right? One involved paperwork, citations, and revenue acceptance, and the other involved pursuit force and life and death decisions. But both were exercises of government authority, right? Carried out under the color of law. Both depended on systems functioning as they were intended to function. Both demonstrate why accuracy, oversight, and clarity are not abstract ideals, right? But real-world safeguards and that have real-world consequences. It's not about drama or understanding how power operates when you follow it across settings instead of isolating events, right? Quiet errors collected in chambers, and violent confrontations resolved on the street are part of the same group, governing ecosystem. When you zoom way out, that connection is not philosophical, it's factual. I mean, look, this crossed multiple towns, multiple areas. I'm not even sure, but I think that's might even be a different county. Yeah, and Cuyahoga. Yeah, so but governance does not stop at the agenda or the police tape, right? Some people are going to stop and ask why city council meeting held on Tuesday night and a police pursuit and a fatal officer-involved shooting reported on Wednesday night belong even in the same episode, right? Well, that question assumes government operates in silos, separated by calendar days, departments, and headlines. In reality, governance is continuous. Authority doesn't reset overnight. The same legal framework, the same institutional habits, and the same standards of precision carry from one day to the next. And as I always say, there is no tomorrow. You just got today. It's just today, just today, just today. On Tuesday night, I was at City Hall. I was reporting on a council meeting where statutory authority mattered in a very quiet but very real way. Council was accepting state-distributed the marijuana tax revenue into the general fund. That action depended entirely on the correct identification of a citation of controlling law. When the law department inverted the statutory citation, the authority underpinning the action was momentarily wrong on the public record. A council member caught it. The record was corrected. The system slowed down just enough to fix itself before moving forward. That matters, guys, because it shows how power is supposed to function. When time allows for deliberation, statutes are cited, errors are identified, corrections are made publicly, like Jeff did, like Jeff Bear did, like Mr. Councilman Bear did. I don't know, I'm going to call him Jeff, but Councilman Bear, you get that respect from me because of what you just did. I told him I've never seen some shit like that ever. But corrections were made publicly. Oversight works because someone's paying attention. He was paying attention, and he was willing to speak up before the mistake hardened into some sort of precedent. He made sure there was going to be no errors, right? Not on my watch. Not today, Satan. But then came Wednesday, right? Earlier today, I was reporting in real time as residents across Lorain, Sheffield Township, Elyria, and surrounding areas began observing that unusually large and fast-moving multi-agency police response. And it wasn't rumor, it wasn't hindsight, it wasn't contemporaneous reporting based on direct observation and immediate public accounts as it unfolded. Multiple marked units from different jurisdictions were seen moving at extreme speed through surface streets, arterial corridors, residential areas, lights, sirens, code, right? That was sustained movement over several minutes, not a single response vehicle, but coordinated convergence across multiple municipalities. And because before any official statement was issued, it was already clear this was not a routine patrol activity. The scale, the speed, the jurisdictional overlap indicated a high-risk incident in progress. Residents were watching cruisers move through school zones, commercial corridors, and neighborhood streets at speeds that clearly exceeded those posted limits, pushing across Lorain County and beyond. I'm not here to question that. I know there've been a lot of news agencies in Cleveland that question speeds and all that. Let's just be thankful no one else was hurt today. That's all I have to say about that. And again, when it comes to the suspect, the individual who's now deceased, now we don't have to worry about the court costs. But, again, you took people hostage and you robbed a truck and you had a weapon in the commission. But later, law enforcement confirmed what the response itself had already made evident. The incident originated as an aggravated robbery that involved a Brinks armored truck. Officers attempted to stop the suspect in Lorain, and he bolted. They initiated a high-speed pursuit. They crossed multiple jurisdictions in the Cuyahoga County. And after North Olmsted deployed those spike strips, vehicle went down. Kind of thought they might use that what do they call it? The grappling or whatever it is, that thing they use. I forget. Anyway, the suspect fled on foot, and what confirmed what was not speculation, and by law enforcement, they said they'd taken that hostage, and that's what led to those his death. These facts were reported once they were confirmed, clearly separated with real-time observation. You look at Tuesday night, you look at Wednesday together because it's where the connection becomes unavoidable. City Hall, power moves slowly, moves through statutes, citations, resolutions, and recorded votes. Errors can be identified and corrected if somebody is attentive, like Jeff Bear, like Councilman Bear, and the process allows space for intervention, which it did that night. The consequences of imprecision are delayed, but they are real. They show up later in audits, litigation, and erosion of public trust. On the streets, power moves fast. It moves through pursuit policies, which, again, I'm not fully aware of in Lorain, shamefully. Radio traffic, which I'm going to get to at the very end, a little side note that I was working on right before this, and which will come to the end soon. Interagency coordination and split judgment exercised under statutory authority. There's no pause button. There was no opportunity to connect or correct course once force was used. The consequences were immediate and irreversible. Both exercises of power rely on color of law. Both depend on systems functioning as they're supposed to. Both depend on precision. The difference is not substance. The difference is speed. A miscited statute at City Hall on Tuesday and a high-risk police pursuit on Wednesday are not unrelated simply because one is administrative and the other is dramatic. They are both tests of whatever system is capable of exercising authority carefully under different kinds of pressure. When precision is treated casually in quiet settings, it eventually fails in loud ones. When oversight is assumed instead of practiced, the margin for error suddenly just disappears. And the thing is that I've reported both events, and I believe they belong in both episodes, in this one episode. Not to blur categories, not to sensationalize, but to show the public how governance actually functions when you follow it across days, departments, and consequences without artificial separation. This project, Lorain, Unplugged with Darren Knapp, it really does exist to document the connections as they happen, to report what's observable before the official narrative is solidified, to distinguish confirmed facts from real-time observation and speculation, and to show how authority exercised slowly in meetings and authority exercised rapidly in emergencies are governed by the same legal framework and demand the same kind of standard of care. That's not theory. That's what happened. That's why all this connects and why it all actually matters. I want to spend real time here intentionally without rushing, because endings are where listeners start to either understand what they just heard or walk away thinking they listened to a sequence of unrelated events stitched together for convenience. What you heard in this episode, folks, is not a collage, okay? It's not a grab bag of topics. It wasn't, a programming choice. It was a single governing system observed at different moments under different pressures and at radically different speeds, all within the same legal and institutional framework, right? And I dare say, before I get into this little part, I dare say that both functioned well. Nobody but the suspect was unalived in the police chase. Bravo, kudos. No people, for the most part, were harmed in the police chase. Bravo, kudos. And in the end, justice was served. And we don't have to have a big court hearing. The officer will have his administrative hearing, but nobody's going to question whether that shot was justified or not, especially not the mom and those 4 kids. So that worked. And then Councilman Bear, bravo, kudos for catching that. And again, Terry Soto, bravo, kudos for completing, as I did in that story. I said I would mention you in my podcast. She has created an online resource for the city residents to use to go file their taxes this year. It's not up on the system yet, but make sure you go there. Check it out. She was one of her bucket list items, her final bucket list item from what she said in the interview. And I've been crossing multiple, and let's not be, coy here. That's a big deal. This is the difference when you having to drive all the way to the city, treasurer's office, or whether you get to be at home and just file online. And then you file all your other stuff online, and now suddenly you can do this. Bravo. But it's all within the same legal institutional framework, right? It's your government. The city council meeting correcting a statutory area, the law department insisting on numerical precision when it suited them, right? With Mr. Gargis in that story that they garbled through online and nobody could understand. They were all about numerical precision then when it suited them. While they failed to apply that same standard of care internally, and the multi-agency police response that escalated into a hostage situation and a fatal officer-involved shooting, they're not as separate stories that merely happen to occur close together in a time or geography. They are manifestations of the same structure of authority, exercising power in different forms, with different margins for error, but under the same underlying rules, the revised code. At City Hall, power moves slowly by design. It moves through agendas that are set in advance, through statutes that are supposed to be read carefully, through resolutions drafted by legal counsel that are supposed to be right, and through minutes that become part of the permanent public record. That's the slow pace that's supposed to be a safeguard. It relies on the assumption that somebody has read the statute correctly, the law department, and that somebody has verified the legal authority being evoked, the law department, and that someone will catch an error if it hardens into policy, precedent, or exposure. Councilman Jeff Bear, that's right, folks. Councilman Jeff fucking Bear, my new hero. God damn. Mark this day, an Army guy said that a Marine was his fucking hero. Jesus. But when that assumption holds, guys, governance appears orderly. It appears boring. It appears safe. It appears as not accidental. The slow movement of power is meant to absorb the error before it causes harm. But when that assumption does not hold, that precision is treated casually or selectively, mistakes don't disappear. They calcify, they get baked into the record. They become vulnerabilities that surface later when there's no longer time to correct them quietly. What Jeff did in that moment was calmly, quietly, conservatively correct the record, get it moved on, and made no issue about it. That's what governance is supposed to fucking look like. He obviously read his shit before he got there that day. Good for you, Jeff. Now, on the streets, power moves fast. There's no illusion otherwise. It moves through sirens, radio traffic, interagency coordination, decisions made under extreme stress. It can move through pursuit policies, use of force standards, statutory authority, and is activated instantly rather than deliberately over time. It relies on training, policy, judgment operating together without friction, because friction in that environment is danger. When the system functions as designed, people are protected, not because officers are infallible, but because the structure limits error. When it breaks down, there's no buffer, there's no committee, there's no opportunity to correct a citation or revise language before moving forward. The consequences are immediate, physical, and irreversible. What ties these two settings together is not emotion or drama. It's the law. It's the law, folks. Authority doesn't change in its nature because the venue changes anywhere. The same legal framework that governs a city and how it accepts revenue from the state governs how officers pursue suspects, deploy force, and secure scenes and justify their actions afterwards. The same expectation of precision that applies to statutory citations in a council chamber apply to pursuit policy, interagency coordination, and the use of force decisions on the street. That's why precision is not technical obsession. It's public safety issue. It's a governance issue. It's a legitimacy issue. It's when systems are careful, people are protected, not because everyone's involved is virtuous, right? But because the structure itself contains error and absorbs the stress. When systems are sloppy, the consequences do not stay confined to paperwork or internal memos. They travel outward, and sometimes they surface as litigation. Sometimes they surface as financial cost. Sometimes they surface as trauma. Sometimes they surface as death. And sometimes they surface as all of the above. But the law department error matters for the same reason that the police response matters. Not because they're morally equivalent events, right? But because they expose the same underlying dependency on details being right before pressure hits. Miscited statute at a meeting may look harmless, but in legislation, it reflects whether accuracy is treated as essential or optional. That cultural posture does not remain contained. It carries into every other exercise of authority that relies on the same people, the same habits, the same tolerance for error. I mean, the law department is also the prosecutors, who the police have to go to anyway. Monkey see, monkey do. But when precision is selectively enforced, trust erodes. When trust erodes, legitimacy weakens. And when legitimacy weakens, every subsequent exercise of authority becomes harder to defend, because even when it's substantively justified, that's not a public relations problem. It's a structural one. And this is why these stories cannot be siloed without doing the public a disservice. Residents are conditioned to consume governance in fragments, right? Council meetings are over here, police activity over there, finance separated from public safety, legal process divorced from human consequence. That fragmentation benefits the institution, not the people governed by them. It prevents patterns from being seen. It prevents accountability from crossing departmental boundaries. It allows such actors to claim that their responsibility ends just right before the consequences begin. Now, journalism that only covers that dramatic endpoint without documenting the procedural foundation does not serve the public. A police shooting does not begin at the moment the force is used. It begins years earlier in statutes, budgets, training, decisions, policy drafting. It matters in legal advice and oversight practices. The shape, what is passable in the moment. A council vote does not end when that gavel falls, right? it continues in money and how it's allocated and how law is enforced and how authority is exercised and when systems are stressed and when you're going to send stuff to reporters and when you're not, who gets special treatment and who doesn't, when you're going to charge a citizen for something that a government official did in the middle of a public meeting and one mattered and the other one didn't, when you let certain citizens cuss other citizens out and you charge nobody, but yet you'll let a certain citizen be charged and you make it happen. This project exists to connect those dots deliberately and responsibly, not to inflame fear, not to provide cover, not to reduce complex systems into slogans or talking points. It exists to document what actually happens and when the law is applied and when it's misapplied and when it's corrected. And it exists to slow the cycle down long enough for facts to matter before the narratives harden into something untouchable. Because once it becomes belief, you guys are going to just, everyone believes it and you can't change it. That's the foundation. And why this foundation for what I'm doing matters. Forming the LLC, formalizing the work, carrying press ID, insisting on clarity were not cosmetic steps. I've done all of this very, very specifically. There were structural decisions made so that this reporting could continue without being dependent on comfort, permission, or selective recognition by my government. They exist so the work can follow power wherever it goes, whether it moves quietly through a committee agenda or violently through a neighborhood at 100 miles per hour. And it allows me to bring on other people, possibly. It allows me to give them the same credentials. Because the work doesn't stop because an episode ends. The meetings will continue. The records will continue to be requested. The discrepancies will continue to be documented. And when authority is exercised at any speed, this project will continue to follow it with the same standard applied every time, without carving out exceptions based on convenience or discomfort. Not because it's dramatic, not because it's popular, because it's necessary. That's the commitment behind Unplugged with Knapp. That is the purpose of the structure now in place. And yeah, I'm Aaron Knapp. And that's not changing. So before I let you guys go tonight, I did want to bring one thing up. A little piece of current event news that I saw right before I started this episode that I really couldn't do. And yeah, his name was Patrick Ward. But so, and this is just me reading something I threw together right before I started this podcast. But can the counties recognize 911 dispatchers as first responders was my question. So I saw a story where the county commissioners unanimously passed a proclamation recognizing 911 dispatchers as first responders. And for the people in the room, the dispatchers who take the worst calls on the worst days, it was an emotional moment, right? And many of them said it was long overdue. But it also raises another important question. Can they actually do that? Well, the answer is yes, and obviously no. So, yes, the county commissioners absolutely have the authority to issue a proclamation like this. And a proclamation is an official statement of values and recognition. It puts the county on record acknowledging that 911 dispatchers perform emergency response functions, make life and death decisions, and face the same kind of trauma that police officers, firefighters, and paramedics do. That recognition matters, and it's not just symbolic. It can influence internal policies, support better access to mental health resources, and help with recruitment and retention, and strengthen the case for future funding or grants. But here's where the no tech part kind of comes in. And there's always the no, right? Like there always is. Under the state's law, the Ohio state law, a county proclamation cannot change Ohio law, right? Just can't. Any more than the city can change Ohio gun laws or 9.68. Under state's 911 law, 911 dispatchers are still classified as clerical or administrative employees. That means counties can't, on their own, grant dispatchers the same retirement system, statutory benefits, or legal protections that are reserved for first responders under state statutes. Things like pension eligibility, PTSD presumptions, certain workers' compensation protections, those require action by the Ohio Attorney General. And county leaders were clear about that. The proclamation does not end the fight. It's part of a larger push to get the state to formally recognize what dispatchers already are in practice. The first voice you hear in an emergency, and often a difference between life and death. So yes, Lorain County can recognize dispatchers as first responders, and they did. But turning that recognition into a full status is a battle that now moves into the State House. For the dispatchers in the room, though, being seen and acknowledged was a powerful first step for that. Just kind of wanted to read that out. It was something I picked up today in a news story that I read right before. It was in a couple of different areas before I came on tonight, and I thought it was something useful. One question I would ask again, because I'm a negative Nelly, is that the standards that apply to that when you talk about that. Okay, so if they did actually push that through, would that mean that the same penalties would apply for someone attacking a dispatcher as they would a firefighter or a police officer with, enhanced penalties and all of that? I imagine it would. But these are the questions that would probably have to be asked both constitutionally with the Ohio Constitution and with the lawmakers. But that's for the General Assembly to decide, not me. In the meantime, guys, it's been a great day. We started an LLC. We got our EIN. We are bona fide. And again, yeah, I heard through the grapevine that this is what they wanted to do. So I went ahead and took care of it. Just another way of fending off the wolves a little bit longer, right? Good old shepherd boy and his dog sitting right over there taking care of business. But I'm going to keep operating. I'm going to keep reporting. I'm going to keep giving this information to you. Some of it's going to be stuff like this. Some of it's going to be game-changing, news-breaking, heartbreaking material. But just remember, for those of you like people in the juvenile court, you guys had a chance to fix things with me. When I asked you for help, when I said, can you write this? Can you do that? It was always a no. You shunned me like I was a pariah after you put me in your Christmas cards. So for those of you that still work there that have asked me for help lately, why should I? A certain judge asked me for help, and I was like, when I asked you for help, you shunned me. Interesting. Gotcha. So, times are changing in Lorain County and Lorain City, folks. You have to realize that. And you had no further to look than the Monday night's meeting with the mayor and the safety service director looking down, and they'll never answer my questions. Mary will never answer why she shared all my emails with everyone. I get why she did it, but again, they're sitting there arguing with me right now in court, costing taxpayer dollars. They're going to pay me $1,000, per record, apparently, for all these records they want to withhold that they haven't given me. And on top of that, they're going to pay my attorney $350 an hour, which they've already agreed to through the signage they put up that I verified they just put up in October, in the same coordination with my own public records requests where they state at the bottom, they recognize and acknowledge if they withhold records and don't let me inspect them, that they will have to pay attorney fees as agreed, basically even prima facie admission to their own crime. And they put the sign up on their own volition. They paid for it with taxpayer dollars on October 6th, and they put it on the wall. You know how fucking obnoxious that is? So now, yeah, you're going to argue with me. We're in court. They haven't even responded yet. And I've had to actually now subpoena, well, we've had to, because I'm paying for it. But, my lawyers had to actually ask for everything from the court because, do some sort of photo thing or majigger that lets them, I don't know. We need to see the records is the bottom line. And he's written out a motion asking for them to show them to us, or at least for the court to review them and then say what can and can't be released. Because it seems the city, as well as the county, want to redact stuff that's not supposed to be redacted. Even in Mary's emails, there's big chunks of sections blanket redacted, which is highly illegal under the Open Records Act. And yet you have your own city attorneys claiming that that's legal. Riley himself is saying, we redacted it in the law department, not Mary. Okay, Riley, well, thank you for admitting that. That means you're a douchebag because you don't know the law. Read Ohio, sunshine laws, and you'll know blanket redactions never apply. So any of your blanket redactions were inherently wrong and against the law. But then again, you can't even get the marijuana tax laws right for your own council people. How could you be expected to know all of this other stuff? I know, Pumpkin. It's just so hard being you. It's real tough, huh? Be like, bust out my dog and be like, I could be like, hey guys, don't worry, Riley. Every dog has its day. One day you'll get a law right, jackass. Ha ha! I don't know. Sorry. That's my therapy device. But dude, these guys are jokes. And I'm sick of it. And what I've done today by LLCing it up and protecting my name and protecting my identity has been the smartest thing I've done in a long time. And yeah, you can say I'm not a journalist. No, I'm better than that in the sense that I am an LSW. It's still on that wall. I'm bound to tell the truth. You can tell people I'm lying all you want, Bradley or Carry On or Mary. You can tell people I'm violent with no proof, but you can't prove it because I'm not any of those things. And I have no criminal record because if I did, I wouldn't have that. That requires a statewide background check. You guys have been trying to villainize me since day one, just like Tia Hilton, just like other people, just like when little Miss Tuffet sat on her Muffet over there at Katie Byer and put me on her murder board and said I was working with all these people at the county. I don't know these people. I moved here, graduated in 22. Why would I know any of these people? And why would I be involved? And why would I be on her murder board? She did a whole episode about me for like an hour. I was like, dude, only like 12 people watched it, and I think 3 of them were me. And it kind of pissed me off because I was like, well, shit, you should have known better. But I mean, apparently I wasn't a big draw because it was just all about me, but it was all about stuff that I never did. Talking with people I never talked with. I'm not associated with any of these people. I'm me. I do me. Yeah, I'm associated with some people now, but especially back then, it was just the Lone Ranger, Aaron. So kick any of that thoughts out of your mind. Aaron's here to stay. Unplugged with Aaron Knapp is here to stay. The LLC is in place. The EIN is in place. Aaron is in place. Government, if you're doing wrong, prepare to be exposed. This is I was talking to, some of my other newspaper friends recently. I just said, we're going to give you the props. Like I gave Terry Soto the props. She did a great thing with the online filing. And I reported on it. I believe that today's chase, I don't know if it was totally legal with the high speeds they were hitting, especially up to 100 miles an hour, especially through school zones. But I don't know the whole story. I'll wait for the report to come out. But the outcome in the end, no one was hurt except for the suspect. So I'm going to call that a justified shooting. But I wasn't there, but I did get to report it live. And as far as, again, Councilman Bear, great job. I said it that night. And so as I always said to everybody, guys, if you don't compliment the good, then how can you call it the bad? I can yell at you all day long. I can tell Mayor Bradley to F off and flip him off and still say, hey, great job on, the cleaners in the place, or hey, great job on this motion or this thing. Just because I'm displeased with you in a moment, when you stick your hand out like this, like a jackass, and go, here are your records, and I give you the double birds, like when you get mad at me, well, I was already mad at you. Imagine you, a grown-ass 60-something-year-old man, telling me your disability is senior citizen and then sticking your hand out like this, all because you're mad at me because I'm dethroning your boy, Ray, right? Your little guy you're grooming to be mayor. Who, again, I would argue, while you said the other day in that investigative email I sent, oh, well, I think that's still under investigation. Well, Mayor, you shouldn't be involved in any investigation because that's undue command influence, especially since he's your employee. And what you said in that email, especially when you communicate with Fowling, shows that the investigation itself is now challenged ethically by the fact that you have undue command influence. And therefore, you need to challenge that and move it outside the area. Get an independent investigation on this. Because no matter how you look at it, what Ray did was disrupting a public meeting. He held the floor. He yelled at me. And I'm a nothing. I'm a non-existent when I don't hold the floor and I'm not a member of the meeting. Only he matters. And nothing I did was disrupting. So yes, what he did was disrupting. It stopped it. Mary and others had to get up and calm him down and rub his back, right? Like a little baby. So yeah, he disrupted the meeting. Take your licks like Garen did and shut it. Go fucking take your licks like a man, Ray. Be a man. Take your hit, right? Own up. Grab some of that machismo and go down there. You were machismo enough to yell at me. Did you say something? Did you say something? In a council meeting like I was a dog after all the shit you put me through. And now I find these emails and that looks like prior issues So when I look at what he did that night, it was an explosion of retaliation based on the fact that for almost 2 years, he had not been able to achieve what he promised Mary he was going to do, which was find a legal way, a legal avenue, as they said, in which to deal with Mr. Knapp, aka George Patton, for his harassment, his attacking, and whatever else. Bro, I never attacked you, and I've never harassed anyone. You've accused me of crimes. You dirty little bitch. I didn't commit no crimes. Sorry, I didn't commit any crimes. I'm sorry. I reported, I advised, I requested. You plotted, you planned, you worked with Mary Springowski, who you guys all act like you hate each other, but you guys are all buddy because you're all, oh, Ray. Everybody was up hugging him and kissing him and rubbing his back and kissing his little ass. Oh, Ray, you look so good in a suit. Let me rub your back. Oh, Ray. Oh, Ray. Fuck off. Come on, guys. Like, and you still haven't signed those minutes because you know you're screwed. You guys are so screwed. You can say whatever you want, Bradley. You threaten me, you fuck. Come back and see me when I'm not mayor. Why would I want to? Then you're not my government. I have nothing to do with you. I don't want to fight any of you. You got something to say? You got something to say? Yeah, Ray. What were you guys going to do? Beat me up? You still have to provide me all those South Shore records. I still want to know all the people that were involved in that whole business deal that Giardini started back then with South Shore and all that I've asked for. You haven't provided me. You guys are all slow on providing all these records because you know what it's going to show. I'm not the one that did it. Pay the piper. Pay the piper. If there are orgies going on, they will be exposed. If there are pipers to be paid, they will be paid. If there is, detriment to our government happening, we will expose it. Where there is darkness, there will be sunlight. Wherever you expect me to be, I won't be. I'll be somewhere else. And no, Mary, it's not stalking or harassing. No one wants to stalk or harass you. Go look in the mirror, please. Self-reflection is the key and core to self-evaluation. And if you go look in a mirror, maybe you can evaluate why you hate you so much that you accuse everyone else of doing the things that you do. Because as I always tell my daughter, when she says, that person yelled at me, that person did this. Well, baby, what do I always say? Who's it about? It's not about me. It's about them. Well, why? Well, because it is about them. When I yell at somebody for doing something that I know I too do, is it about me or them? It's about me. Because why would I really yell at you? You don't matter enough in my world. And that's not disrespectful. For those of you walking this earth, very few people in your world matter enough to get you to engage in a way that's going to be passionate or argumentative. That's why I always say, if you have to hate someone, you have to love them first. I can't hate someone I've never loved. I don't hate Mary or any of these people. They're non-existence, like outside of their government roles. And every time I've seen them, I see them in their government roles. I treat them as in their government roles, except for the few times I saw, like I ran into a couple of them at, events. It was always polite. Ray pointed out he ran into me at the street fair for no reason. Didn't say anything bad, just I ran into the street fair. Yeah, you didn't talk to me. That's the way, though, they treat me. You treat me like I'm a despised enemy, and then you wonder why you get the treatment you do. But then you can look at, how can I talk to Terry Soto? How can I communicate with certain people of council? Honestly, how can I communicate with you same people that hate my guts? The only one I don't speak to is Mary, because she's made it very clear in her emails and her statements she's never going to speak to me. She stated that as a councilwoman with an obligation to report to her constituents, she refuses to answer my emails, but yet she's been emboldened enough to forward them to everybody, Lorain Ritchie, the public, her friends, her family, her husband, her dad, her 3 private emails. Heather Chapin, I don't know, fucking, people at the Chronicle, whoever the fuck else she wants to email. She emails them to everyone, but she can't respond. That's some spineless shit right there. I'm surprised she's not a blob of jelly, because she doesn't have a spine. Backstabbing, cat clawing, bitchy ass behavior. You want to play? Then play. Confront someone to their face. I said I was going to confront you, and you accused me of going to be violent, aggressive, and all this shit. I'm not going to be violent. Confrontation is the core to demonstration and to democratic rule. You guys, the same Democrats that would argue going out and confronting ICE, will sit here and bitch because I say I'm going to come and confront you on something. You realize the hypocrisy there? Fuck off with that bullshit. So that's all I'm going to say about all that. I'm just going to say it's a new dawn. It's a new year. It's a new Aaron. It's a new Unplugged with Aaron Knapp. We got an LLC. We got an EIN. And we got it squared away. We're going to move forward. And, we're going to expose what has been yet to be exposed. We're going to uncover the stories that they never think we're going to uncover. And this is why they're scared that we're asking for records. Because sometimes mundane records that we're asking for nothing prove everything. I mean, again, if you believe that they meant to leave that carry-on email in there where he's directly talking about using the power of his governmental agency to basically investigate me in a way that would find a way to get rid of me, a citizen, that tells you everything you need to know about the government, the man, Ray Carry-On, and even Mary Springowski. And I would say Jack, all the rest of them, because they've all been CC'd on these emails. And I dare say if they were required to give all emails up that they wrote about me, it would be a very changing landscape. You wouldn't be able to keep anyone employed. Dave Vanderschmidt and other people like the Artec and stuff are on my feeds while I'm in City Hall during business hours on your tax dollars. And they're going to pay me $1,000 for these records. And they're going to keep nickeling and diming and paying me money on these tax records because it's not their money. Until you people, and I do mean you people of Lorain, hold them accountable. Until you Lorain County citizens hold these Republican county commissioners responsible for the burn down job they've done. Data centers, malls bought, just garbage fucking deals. And now Jeff thinks he's going to run again. And then Mary was denying her an email. She speaks to Dave Moore, but she has clearly emails in there to Marty Gallagher, who's Dave Moore's bitch. Everyone knows that, allegedly. And so when you look at that, and you want me to believe that all these connections don't come back, and that the guys and the ladies that have been giving me information all along that have never been wrong are suddenly lying to me about all the stuff that people have, and that the evidence they've been providing me, and some of the pictures and audio files I haven't put out because I don't think it's legal for me to put those kind of things out. But I can tell you, I hold some interesting videos and pictures that I keep off site in a very special drive. And wow, some of you have been dirty, dirty boys and girls. Social worker Aaron does not approve. Tisk, tisk. So, I mean, again, I would suggest most of you do what Mr. I think it was Adams did and take a job in Texas. Well, maybe somewhere else because I'm moving to Texas when I'm done. But your spot's no longer in government in Lorain. All of your days as government officials are going to end up being numbered because you've lost the trust of the public. They're going to vote you out eventually because of the fact that you keep blowing all their money. I mean, for God's sakes, the county and the city are just broke as shit. I hit the same pothole on my way to daughter's school every day because you can't avoid it. And I just cuss every time, and my daughter gets mad, I get mad. That's what your tax dollars are supposed to pay for. 18 grand is going to go into the fucking, general fund from the marijuana stuff. Why don't you at least fix the roads in front of the marijuana dispensaries? They paid for the road. Might as well we did. But I mean, they're getting $18 or more in taxes from every resident buying marijuana in Lorain. So if you're getting $18 in local taxes per citizen buying, I said and ran off the fact they should have actually brought in more marijuana dispensaries and maybe even a grow factory for the tax revenue. That actually would be the saving grace of Lorain and the easiest thing to bring in. And now that they've got this check, I guarantee you that decision will probably happen. And that's some of the stuff I was running off of. And I honestly hope they do it. Be a great boon for Lorain City. But it just cracks me up. Now you're getting this money and, you guys almost lost it because you inverted the numbers. But it's getting late, folks, and I hear the dog over here snoring. So thank you for tuning in tonight. This is Aaron Knapp. I've been live tonight. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys check us out next time. Go check out the website where we post all the news that is the news. That's good news with Gary Ganu, actually with Aaron Knapp Unplugged, the new LLC here in the state of Ohio. I want to thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time. Law enforcement, be lawful, not awful. And the rest of you guys, make it a wonderful day.
Unplug with Knapp. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Knapp. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission.